When you suddenly pull away, the entire dynamic between you two shifts, and it's not just your absence that hits her, it's the massive emotional void you leave behind. The silence after a high-value man vanishes speaks volumes, louder than anything you could ever say. In that quiet, she starts feeling things she never saw coming, powerful emotions that completely reshape how she views you. These feelings aren't just passing thoughts. They are profound, life-changing realizations that will leave her thinking about you in a way she never has before. In this video, we're breaking down the 8 intense emotions she goes through when you disappear. Emotions that will shift her perspective on you forever. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Section 1. The shock of silence. The first wave she feels when you disappear is a jarring, heart-stopping shock. But this isn't just some fleeting surprise. It's a heavy, all-encompassing realization that her world just shifted in ways she didn't expect. The atmosphere around her suddenly feels dense, like the air itself has thickened. Her usual routine, once filled with your presence, is now marked by an eerie stillness. The reality sets in. You, a constant she didn't even realize she was leaning on, are suddenly gone. And that absence? It's deafening. She had grown so accustomed to the simple moments that made her feel connected to you. Your messages lighting up her phone, your name popping up on her screen, the excitement of hearing your voice on the other end of the line. Now, in the blink of an eye, all of that is gone. The silence that follows isn't just the lack of sound. It's the absence of everything you brought into her life. Attention, warmth, and the sense of being truly seen. At first, she may try to brush it off, convincing herself that maybe you're just busy, or that there's a logical reason for the sudden quiet. But as the days go by, the truth starts to sink in. You've really vanished, and it's not a temporary situation. That's when the shock really hits. This isn't just a pause, it's a profound shift, and it's completely catching her off guard. It's that first gut punch moment when she realizes just how much your presence actually meant to her, even if she never fully acknowledged it. This shock disrupts her sense of equilibrium. Everything she thought she could rely on feels uncertain, like the ground beneath her feet is suddenly unsteady. She may try to fill the void, to distract herself, but the emptiness you left behind is impossible to ignore. Every time her phone stays quiet when she expected to hear from you, or when her world feels a little less vibrant without you, the shock deepens. It's a lingering sting, a wake-up call to the undeniable truth. You've disappeared, and she wasn't prepared for the weight of that reality. Section 2. The craving for validation. Once the initial shock of your disappearance starts to fade, a powerful new emotion begins to take over. An intense, all-encompassing craving for validation. This isn't just a passing thought. It's a deep, relentless desire to know that she truly mattered to you. When you were a part of her life, whether she realized it or not, you provided her with something invaluable: attention, care, and the constant reminder that she was someone worth noticing. But with your sudden absence, all of that is wiped away in the blink of an eye. Now, she's left in a sea of uncertainty. Did I really mean something to him? Or was I just another person passing through? That gnawing question becomes a constant companion, and it's not something she can easily dismiss. Without your validation, she starts doubting her own worth. The very sense of security she once had in herself and in her connection with you starts to crumble. With your presence gone, she's desperately searching to fill the void. This is when she begins to check her phone obsessively, hoping for a message, any sign that you're still thinking of her. She might even dive into your social media, trying to decipher the smallest clue about where you stand. A like on an old post, a casual comment, anything that could reassure her that she's still significant in your world. Every interaction, no matter how small, becomes a lifeline for her to cling to, a fleeting glimpse of the validation she so desperately needs. And here's where it gets tricky. Your silence only deepens her need for confirmation. The longer you remain distant, the more she craves that validation. She might even start reaching out in indirect ways, liking your photos, commenting on your posts, or sending messages that seem casual but carry a deeper intent. She's trying to test the waters, to see if there's any chance to reopen the connection. But if you continue to stay silent, her desire for validation becomes more intense, more desperate, like an itch she can't scratch, a feeling she can't shake. It's not just about you anymore. It's about her own need to feel valued, to know that she made an impact in your life, and as your absence lingers, that need becomes all-consuming, a silent hunger that she can't ignore. Section 3. The rise of doubt. The moment your absence stretches on, something far more unsettling begins to creep in. Doubt. This is when her emotions start to unravel in a way she wasn't prepared for. Your disappearance forces her to look inward, questioning everything about herself, her choices, and the entire dynamic between you two. She begins to second-guess every word, every look, every action she took. Did I say something wrong? Was I too guarded? Did I push him away without even realizing it? The flood of these questions doesn't just wash over her. It sticks around, gnawing at her, refusing to let go. Doubt is a silent intruder that slowly eats away at her confidence. What once felt certain and secure is now fragile, shattering like glass with each passing moment. She replays every interaction in her mind, trying to figure out what she could have done differently. Maybe if she'd been more open or more attentive or less guarded, things would be different now. The weight of this uncertainty hangs over her, like an unsolved puzzle, and she's left with only the frustration of not having all the pieces. You're not there to clarify, to explain, or to offer any reassurance, and that silence only fuels her doubts more. This stage is dangerous because it's not just her actions she's questioning anymore. It's the very foundation of the relationship. Did she even truly understand what was happening between you? Was she as in control of the situation as she thought? The realization that she might not have fully grasped your connection, that maybe she misread the whole thing, is terrifying. It leaves her questioning her own judgment and, more unsettlingly, the truth of everything she believed about you and the relationship. And here's the kicker. Doubt thrives in the absence of answers. The longer you stay silent, the deeper her self-doubt grows. It spirals, eroding her sense of self and making her question everything she thought she knew. Without you there to provide clarity or closure, she's left spinning, lost, unsure of where to turn or how to make sense of what's happening. The more she doubts, the stronger her need to find resolution becomes. But without you, she's stuck in an endless loop, unable to find the answers she desperately needs. Section 4. The feeling of rejection. The moment you choose to walk away, it hits her like a punch to the gut. The gut-wrenching sting of rejection. Unlike a relationship that fades naturally, or both people simply drifting apart, your decision to disappear feels like a sharp, personal blow. It wasn't a random event. It was a choice you made, and that choice stings deeply. Even if things weren't perfect, even if there were signs of trouble, the fact that you actively decided to leave her behind forces her to question her worth in ways she never anticipated. Rejection is a devastating emotion, one that cuts deep. She starts asking herself, why wasn't I good enough for him to stay? What did I do wrong? These questions don't just pass through her mind. They linger like an unshakable shadow, gnawing at her sense of self. It feels personal, even if your departure wasn't meant to wound her. Your absence makes her believe at her core that there's something fundamentally wrong with her, that she wasn't worth sticking around for. The rawness of rejection taps into a primal fear we all harbor. The fear of not being loved, not being valued, and in the silence you've left behind, that fear becomes all too real. Without your presence to explain things, she's left to fill in the gaps. The story she tells herself is one where she wasn't enough, where she wasn't worthy of your time or affection. But here's the kicker. Rejection doesn't just hurt, it drives people to action. It fuels her desire to prove herself, to show you that she's worthy, that she can win back your attention, that things can be different. This is when she might start reaching out, subtly or directly, trying to rekindle the connection, to prove that she's changed, or that she still matters to you. Rejection ignites a fire inside her, compelling her to fight for something she believes she's lost. And in your absence, it's this burning need to reclaim what was taken from her that pushes her forward. Section 5. The guilt that follows. After processing the sting of rejection, a new, even more complicated emotion takes hold. Guilt. This is when she begins to turn the blame inward, questioning if she could have done more to prevent your disappearance, even if the situation wasn't entirely her fault. Guilt is insidious. It tricks her into believing she had more control over the outcome than she actually did. She starts replaying every moment, every conversation, wondering, could I have been more understanding? Did I push him away without even realizing it? It's a relentless cycle. She scrutinizes every interaction, looking for signs that she messed up, searching for a key moment where things might have gone wrong. Maybe she was too demanding, too distant, or maybe something she said unintentionally triggered your exit. In her mind, the blame shifts to her, and she begins to carry the weight of that guilt like a heavy, suffocating burden. It's no longer just about losing you. It's about believing that she was the one who pushed you away. What makes guilt so dangerous is how it forces her to face her own actions. She may have once convinced herself she did everything right, but now, in the silence of your absence, the cracks start to appear. She begins to see the moments where she could have been more open, more vulnerable, or perhaps where she built walls too high. Guilt shines a harsh light on those moments, amplifying her self-doubt and making her wonder if she was ever capable of keeping the connection alive. It's an emotional storm that doesn't pass easily. This guilt also ignites a desperate need to make things right, to prove that she can be better, that she's learned from her mistakes. She may start to think of ways to reach out, to show you how much she's grown, how she's learned from the past. But here's the catch. You're gone, and that makes the guilt even more unbearable. She has no way to apologize, no outlet to clear the air, no way to seek closure. And as each day passes with no chance to make amends, the weight of her guilt only grows heavier. It eats away at her, a constant reminder of what she believes she's lost and what she can never fix. Section 6. The fear of being replaced. As guilt lingers, another, far more intense emotion begins to take hold. The fear of being replaced. It's a gut-wrenching fear that claws at her every thought, intensifying with every passing moment. When you disappear, she can't help but imagine the worst-case scenario. What if someone else has already stepped into her place? Maybe it's another woman, or maybe it's your new job, your passion projects, or even a new sense of freedom. The idea that she's been replaced feels like a constant gnawing presence, eating away at her peace of mind. This fear is rooted in a deep, universal need to feel irreplaceable. When you were in her life, she may have believed that the connection you shared was unique, that she held a special place in your world. But with your sudden absence, those beliefs are shattered. If you could walk away so easily, she starts to question, did she really matter to you at all? And if you could let go of her, what's to stop you from moving on to someone else? Someone better? The thought of being replaced terrifies her, and it drives her to compare herself to anyone who might now have your attention. She might find herself scrolling through your social media, searching for any hint of new connections, new friends, new women, anything that proves her worst fear, that you've moved on and she's been left behind. Every new post or photo of you living life without her feels like a cold reminder that she's not the one occupying your thoughts anymore. This fear doesn't just eat at her confidence, it forces her to question her own worth. Was I not good enough? Did he find someone better? These questions invade her mind, constantly tearing at her self-esteem. The idea that someone else is now getting the attention, the affection, and the love that she once did is almost unbearable. It creates a sense of urgency, a deep, burning need to win you back before it's too late. But as time drags on and you remain out of reach, that fear of being replaced grows stronger, magnifying her sense of desperation and loss. Section 7. Regret. Regret is a silent, suffocating force, and once it takes root, it's almost impossible to escape. As the fear of being replaced consumes her, regret follows in its wake, clawing at her heart. She begins to replay everything in her mind, wishing she could go back in time and do things differently, say the right words, make the right moves to keep you from slipping away. If only she had acted sooner, been more attuned to your needs, been more vulnerable. The what-ifs flood her thoughts, and she can't help but wonder, why didn't I see it coming? Why didn't I fight harder for this relationship? Regret is particularly painful because it's rooted in the past, moments she can no longer change. It forces her to critically analyze the relationship, scrutinizing every small misstep and every missed opportunity. Every moment she could have been more present, more patient, or more understanding becomes magnified. She finds herself asking, what if I had shown him how much he meant to me when I had the chance? These thoughts haunt her, preventing her from finding peace. What makes regret so unbearable is that it comes with a profound sense of helplessness. She can't change what's already been done, and that feeling of powerlessness only makes the pain worse. Along with that, regret stirs up an intense longing. She misses everything: the way you made her laugh, the way you calmed her fears, the way you understood her like no one else. All the little things she took for granted now seem irreplaceable, and she begins to mourn the loss of something she didn't fully appreciate while it was still hers. The memories of your time together, once a source of happiness, now feel bittersweet, filled with the weight of what could have been. The worst part? Regret is incredibly isolating. No matter how desperately she wishes she could rewind time and change her actions, she knows it's impossible. With you gone, she has no one to talk to, no way to make things right, and no chance to seek closure. She's left alone with her thoughts, endlessly replaying every conversation, every moment, wishing she could change just one thing. Regret becomes a relentless cycle, trapping her in a maze of what-ifs and unspoken words, an emotional prison she can't escape. Section 8. Growth. The final stage she reaches is growth, a transformation that emerges from the rubble of pain and confusion. After all the heartbreak, self-reflection, and the raw acceptance of your absence, she begins to understand that your disappearance wasn't just a devastating loss, it was an eye-opening lesson. Through the tears and the anguish, she starts to learn more about herself, about what she truly values in a relationship, and about the importance of appreciating the people who truly matter. This is a stage of immense power because it's where she begins to rebuild, not just her life, but her heart. She takes the lessons she's learned from your departure and applies them to her future, becoming more attuned to her own needs and more appreciative of the relationships she cultivates. Whether it's learning to communicate better, understanding her worth, or valuing vulnerability, the absence of your presence becomes a catalyst for her personal growth, pushing her to be the best version of herself. This growth doesn't mean she's completely over you. It means she's finding her way forward. The pain of losing you becomes a tool, a means to shape a better version of herself for the future. She's no longer stuck in the past, but rather using the lessons of the past to create a more empowered, self-aware future. Your disappearance, as painful as it was, becomes a pivotal turning point, a defining moment that pushes her to evolve into someone stronger, more resilient, and better prepared for what comes next. It's not an end, but a rebirth, one that will shape her life and relationships in ways she never expected.